Net zero for SME. The UK government committed to reducing the UK's net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 100% by 2050 compared to 1990 levels. This target is known as net zero, and the milestone towards moving to a net zero emission economy are now set down in the UK law. So, in simple terms, being net zero means adding no more greenhouse gas emissions to the Earth's atmosphere than the amount you are taking out. So, what is net zero? So, it is a state in which the activities within the value chain of a company result in no net impact on the climate for GHG emissions. So, net zero in simple refers to the balance between the amount of greenhouse gas produced and the amount removed from the atmosphere. From even countries and companies to individuals, tackling climate change is at the top of the agenda, and one way we can help to do this is to reach net zero. So, reaching net zero emissions in the UK, how hard it is. But reaching net zero is about more than just balancing carbon emissions. So, what's really involved here is bringing out about transformation in the way businesses of all sizes operate. So, the government won't be able to achieve its ambitions for net zero without the support of the UK's businesses, given that the small and medium sized enterprises account for 99.9% of the business population in the UK as of 2020. They will have an extremely vital role to play. So, it is about use electricity for renewable resources. Not only does this lower your carbon emissions, but it can help you prepare for environmental laws and regulations that may come into force in the future. Drive less or switch to electrical vehicles, given that over a quarter of the UK's total carbon emissions are due to petrol and diesel powered transport. Encouraging staff to walk, cycle, or use public transport and making the move to low emissions company cars can reduce your impact on the environment and save you money. So, cut down, and the third is cut down on packaging. If you can avoid it altogether, great. If not, try to use natural, recyclable, and recycled materials. Make your supply chain greener by using suppliers that are lowering their own carbon emissions, and by buying products that take less energy to make, transport, and use. You can reduce your business supply chain emissions. So, how hard is to go faster is about all so many things of infrastructure, natural gas heating, low carbon UK industry, trees, and flying less. So, when it comes to infrastructure, without a clear long term vision, there is a risk that investment in infrastructure, both new build and transformation of existing infrastructure from housing, transport networks, and energy generation distribution will not join up to a coherent and efficient zero carbon system fit for the future, creating a barrier to achieving net zero. So, the establishment of the NSIG, that is a Climate National Strategy Implementation Group, and the Cabinet Secretary's leadership to encourage new approaches for coordinating civil service activity across departmental boundaries. So, further evolution of governance infrastructures will be needed to ensure the necessary level of funding and accountability for the net zero target. So, the next slide is about less heat, flying less, and trees. So, decarbonizing the UK's heating system is the greatest challenge in the UK faces in meeting its net zero 2050 target. This report outlines the sheer scale of this task, what the challenge means for consumers and communities, and importantly, the possible opportunities that could arise from successfully transitioning to low carbon heat. The government, working with businesses, will need to ensure that customers are equipped with the right information to make informed decisions on the most appropriate low carbon heating solution. According to NASA, flying less, that is reached around 25% of planes' total carbon emissions come from takeoff and landing, which you can avoid by connecting flights. There are other ways as replace air travel with greener alternatives. When you can fly, make climate friendly choices like choose greener airline, fly economy, and fly direct, offset your emissions, and pack light and rent bulky items. So, as net zero plans proliferate, some companies assume they can rely disproportionately on CDR to offset their own emissions. If it's not just about planting trees, there are even plans to create negative emissions by generating energy from burning biomass, then capturing the emissions produced, a little used process that also requires large amounts of land. Next is use electricity from renewable resources, drive less or switch to electrical vehicles. Making the move to low emissions company cars can reduce your impact on the natural environment and save you money. The government working with businesses will need to ensure that consumers are equipped with the right information to make informed decisions on the most appropriate low carbon heating solution. This local decision making linked with an overarching national plan to deliver the supporting infrastructure will be vital if any decarbonization of heat program is to be successful. Building on the success of reducing the carbon intensity of our electricity suppliers, heat pumps offer one of the most efficient solutions to low carbon heat. But installing millions of these will require a major shift in consumer attitudes and can often require major heating technology and energy efficiency upgrades in the home. So hydrogen boilers may appear a simple solution, but the availability of low carbon hydrogen in the volume and the cost required to heat the nation's home remains a great unknown. So 80% of 80% by 2050 to limit temperature is about all the global emission pathways, which is a source fact of graph from a new scenario resource of integrated research. The Broadway Initiative's Carbon Business Tool is a useful tool to get this process underway, designed to help SMEs measure their corporate emissions easily and taking account of non-CO2 level, because the most important step any business can take before setting climate targets is to calculate current emissions. You can't start to tackle your emissions if you don't know what they are. So the government regularly publishes conversion factors allowing you to calculate the carbon dioxide equivalent of different gases. So you might also consider installing submeters that let you measure the energy use of different sites or processes to establish where your greatest emissions come from. So the next is about setting UK the net zero target, that is global emission pathways. The carbon footprints are measured in categories or types called scopes, so which are defined by the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, the internationally recognized standard for reporting emissions. So business should feel safe using them as a framework. So there are totally three different scopes. The first one, scope 1, is direct emissions from facilities or equipment your business owns or controls. Scope 2 is indirect emissions from energy you buy from suppliers, and scope 3 is indirect emissions from your company's supply chain. So each scope offers different opportunities to cut emissions. This focuses on scope 1 and 2. The most important thing is to set realistic but ambitious targets, perhaps by working out what emissions reductions will be required each year to reach net zero before 2050. So interim targets give you the opportunity to monitor your progress and make corrections if you go off course. And scope 3 emissions are in the most cases and the biggest obstacle to reaching net zero, as they are much harder to eliminate. So factoring them into your interim setting target is vital. And one approach may be set to much more ambitious target, that is a target in the nearer future for getting scope 1 and 2 emissions to go zero and leveling your capacity to focus solely on scope 3. And by 2050, the energy efficiency is the quickest and cheapest way to cut your emissions. So scope 1 and 2 emissions in the UK can be immediately tackled by considering building efficiency, from building fabric measures to reducing heat and cooling loss, or even servicing and replacing boilers. So if you have a company fleet, you will need to think about what this looks like in the light of the Prime Minister's recent commitment to banning the new sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2030, starting the transition to hybrid and electric vehicles as soon as realistic, will pay dividends in the longer term as pressure goes to tackle polluted air. And the super deduction gives additional corporation tax relief for spending on qualifying assets, as is open until March 2023, which means that if it is available, now may be a good time to invest in energy efficient machineries. And of course, many of these early steps will need to be supported by government and international political interventions, from a properly funded charging infrastructure for electrical vehicles to affordable renewables and decarbonized grid that makes affordable clean power ubiquitous. So furthermore, it is vital that businesses are consulted with to ensure the government is listening to their concern and providing consistent, clear information on what is needed from both the sides. So the Together of a Planet campaign encourages small business of up to 250 employees to visit the business climate hub and begin their journey to net zero by making the SME climate commitment. This pledges half greenhouse gas emissions before 2030, achieve net zero emissions before 2050, and share information on their progress each year. So finally, the cost of meeting the UK net zero target at different powers, buildings, and different segments like industries, agriculture, transport. So the message is clear. If you want to go to net zero in the coming decades, you need a plan now. Measuring your impact, setting your priorities, and picking off the easy wins is a great way to start your journey and drive your emissions down. Embarking on your net zero journey can have significant benefits. So it saves costs, brings greater collaborations both upstream and downstream, and it boosts your reputation among clients and customers increasingly concerned about climate change. So while adaptation may cost, the rewards can be more significant. So the government's stance is that taking action on climate change will help businesses grow, seize new opportunities, create new jobs, encourage investment, and adapt against the challenges of a changing planet. So it also believes that by reducing emissions, businesses across the UK, any size, will be able to lower their running costs and save money as a result, attract new customers and investors, maintain a competitive advantage both locally and globally, quality for tax benefits, build a better, more sustainable supply chain and an environment. Thank you.